Hey, everybody. I want to thank you so much for listening to Our Kids Play Hockey, especially this time of year when it's hot outside. And we got a new thing we're doing right now. We have created a new hockey ball in part with Milek Hockey. These are low bounce hockey balls. They are perfect for the summer. And here's the best part. When you buy a 3-pack of these at hockeywraparound.com or amazon.com, we are going to be donating a day's worth of meals for a puppy in need at the ASPCA. Only when you buy these balls. Again, they're called the My Ball by Hockey Wraparound. You can get them at hockeywraparound.com or amazon.com. Every purchase donates a day's worth of meals for a dog in need via the ASPCA. But without further ado, we want to thank you for listening to Our Kids Play Hockey. We're going to jump right into the episode. Check out that promotion, hockeywraparound.com, amazon.com. Just search My Ball by Hockey Wraparound and help a good boy out there. Enjoy the episode. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Elias with Mike Bonelli, and today we have an NHL legend joining us. He has won 7 Stanley Cups, 6 as a player and 1 as a coach, and is a current Hall of Famer, along with being ranked in the NHL Top 100 all-time list. Boy, that's a lot of fun to say. Today, his work involves honoring his heritage and family as a member and steward for First Nation communities, and in the process, growing the game of hockey. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Bryan Trottier to the show today. Bryan, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
It's always a pleasure. Talking hockey is kind of in our blood, so to speak. But what some of the work we're doing, I think we're all very, very proud of. But the more kids we got playing hockey, I think the better the sport is.
Yeah, no, we both agree. I mean, that is one of the messages of the show, Bryan. And I want to start with this. Mike and I had the opportunity to travel with you to Northwest British Columbia a few years back. We did a little documentary. We'll share that in the show notes here to do an event with the Haisla Nation. And I have described that trip to those closest to me as life-changing, is that keyword I usually use on that. The resolve and kindness that I witnessed and received from those people gave me a completely new perspective on life. Could you tell our audience about the challenges that First Nation communities have faced, which is not an easy question to answer, but also how hockey serves to benefit those communities and others?
Yeah, there's definitely a resilience, but there's a warmth and I think a welcoming whenever you visit a community. And I'm always blown away at the hospitality. I'm always very respectful too of the customs and the warmth and the culture, food, just everything about it. But coming from my background, I didn't come up in a community, Indigenous community. I come up in a very small town, village of Valmric. Population was 250 people, but we were like the lone Indigenous family in the community, and we were taught that discrimination was jealousy. And we didn't have any money. We didn't have anything to be jealous about. But we, had 3 square meals a day. We had a farm with animals, and we're out in the nature. We had a garden. We had all these wonderful things that the Indigenous people thrive on, which is, hunting and the fishing aspect, the love of nature, love of animals, just love of sport. And my family was very supportive of sport. And so hockey is a vehicle that we use with the Indigenous, because it is so profound and so deep in the culture of Canada, but it is an opportunity for the Indigenous folks to show their sport and their athleticism. And it's in the communities. We brought floor hockey and the ball hockey aspect of it so that we could get more kids included in the game. If they can't skate, now they can play floor ball, or they can play it in the gym. And so for us, in running shoes and participating with the kids, I think is a lot of fun for us. It's a lot of fun for the kids. It's a lot of fun for the community. You saw it firsthand with our tournament that we had at Haisla, and you felt the warmth. You felt the inclusiveness, because it wasn't just for the Indigenous. They brought the community in, and it was it was just a great energy. And so for me to be able to just bring that to life for everybody and show this wonderful side of the Indigenous peoples, and take the stigmas away that there's alcoholism. Yeah, well, there's alcoholism everywhere. yeah, there's this, that, and another thing. Yeah, well, okay, it's everywhere, but don't make that, because there's so many great things, and that's the pride, and that's what we try to bring to life when we come in there, and let the kids, let the next generation, make healthy choices, stay in school, participate, have activities, be a good person, and take pride in where you come from, and all those wonderful things. And that's kind of the message we want to leave. So, being able to do this for the last, 25, 30 years of my life, after I was done hockey, get more involved with John Shabbat and the Indigenous hockey team, and now with Mike and our floorball. I think all these things, I think, like, and these shows like you have, bring attention and bring awareness that, there's a lot of pride in the Indigenous folks out there. And, we're sure proud of the fact that hockey can be a wonderful participant in showcasing some of their skills and their talents, whether it be art, music, whatever. But here they got sport, they got hockey, and we have the girls playing. We have kids who aren't athletic playing. They be a goalie, but they're shooting a floor ball, and they're having a blast. And so yeah, it's wonderful that you saw it firsthand, and Mike and I are doing it all the time. So it's something you don't want to get used to, but it's kind of fun when that energy's around all the time.
I think one of the overriding messages, seeing Heisla and then being up in Saskatchewan with you and Rich Pilon and the whole First Nations community really came to light for me in a recent conversation we had with Kim Davis with the NHL. And that's that, diversity, inclusion, access, it's the same. And I think people in the US probably don't understand that cultural piece in Canada and in the communities that you've been in now, as I think the most decorated Indigenous athlete in the world, basically, and you go up there and you're a superstar with these folks. But I think more than because you were a hockey player, what I saw from those communities is that you just like what we talk about in any diversity program, girls, whatever kind of community we're looking and talking to, it comes down to if you can be it, if you could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the conversations that really came across from Kim. And I think, in the initiatives from the NHL, and I think you have embodied that, watching you now for the last, now it's like 5-6 years in these kind of a program.
You got to carry the year for the COVID. Yeah.
Right. That one big 1 year piece. But I think just knowing that. So talk a little bit about, when the kids see you, it was funny. Like I got to see it firsthand, right? These kids are just like, oh my God, this is Bryan Trottier. And it's really more from the dads and the moms and knowing you from your NHL days, but the kids getting to see that somebody came out of that community and had all this great success. Maybe talk about how that piece inspires, the communities that you're in, whether it's using the floorball, being part of the hockey, just going to dinners. And like you said, the cultural piece of that and how they're all connected in. I was part of all those ceremonies up there, which I was like blown away by. And it just really put me in a situation where I wanted to learn more and more and more about all of these communities. And I think that's the whole purpose of this, right?
Well, thanks, Mike. I think you bring a lot of things that I think all of us see, but there's an awareness, right? And I think it's wonderful that the Indigenous folks have this respect and pride of where they come from, Mother Earth, just everything that Mother Earth provides, and we get caught up in that powerful moments, right? I think the thing for me, Neil, you mentioned it with the challenges, is the remote communities. So I come from a remote community in Saskatchewan. I made it from a population of 250 people to Long Island population 4 million people. And when kids can see that, okay, they're a little shy, they're a little nervous to leave home, and I was homesick all the time. And I tell these stories, and I tell them about some of the challenges I faced with no money, remote Saskatchewan, who's going to see me, and I can make it all the way to the NHL, have some fun successes, win some Stanley Cups, and make some great friendships. And then I can always go home. I can always come back. You can always bring these experiences back, and people, you become reality all of a sudden. They see you on TV, they see you on Google. They can the internet is helpful for me because yeah, the parents and the grandparents know me, but the youngsters don't. But they can go on the internet, they can see you play, and all of a sudden you're real. You're in front of them, and you're talking to them. You're telling them some of the challenges you face, some of the same challenges that they face. Maybe it's lack of funds, maybe it's being remote, maybe it's who am I going to play with? Not enough kids their age, and you find a way. And communities do, and I'm always impressed. They find ways to fundraise. They find ways to get their kids to where they got to get going. So those things are some of the challenges they have to overcome, just like my parents did, just like coaches, finding the right coaches that support you and give you the right kind of ice time and help you grow in skills. But there's a lot of practice time. There's a lot of hours and hours of practice that you have to do, not just on the ice. But for me, it was having a stick and a ball, going down to the barn to do chores, and that thing bouncing around, and and that was fun for me. That was fun. It was just practicing my stick skills, and and that ball bouncing, and my sisters and brothers as being in net and taking shots at them, and you find a way, and you just find a way to keep practicing your skills. And when you get on the ice, you practice your skating skills. When you don't have ice, you practice your hand skills, and all those things pay off in the end. And those are the things I talk about when I get into the communities. And much like I appreciate and respect all the things that I'm getting while I'm there, the good energy, the welcome, the hospitality, and the foods and all this, I want to bring something to them, and I want to bring them a story. I want to bring something that they can relate to. And our Indigenous roots aren't that far apart. Talk about the foods that I grew up with my grandparents, talk about the hunting I did with my grandfather and my dad, and talk about some of the horseback riding I did, and training animals, and being around, that family atmosphere, the love of family and community, and those are important aspects to the Indigenous folks. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud that our hockey guys in general are all about it. And we see that, we appreciate it, and we all come from kind of similar backgrounds in a sense, but at the same time, that appreciation factor, there's a little bit of humbleness about us, but we're so team oriented, right? And I think that's kind of the common glue amongst hockey guys is you're team oriented. It's not about me, it's about us, and it's about my success is about team success. And that's the same with the Indigenous folks. They're not a me kind of people, but they take pride in the fact that they can bring something to the table. And maybe it's athleticism, maybe it's strength, maybe it's their knowledge, and all these things are powerful things that the next generation they watch and they see, and they become that person. And so mentoring is a big factor in the Indigenous communities, much like it is for me, having my parents be my mentors, having coaches, having teammates that supported me through the thing. But yeah, there's challenges, but there's ways to overcome them. And my story, I hope, helps the next generation, helps the next generation. And the more of us that get out there, the more of us that get, more kids. And now we see the girls playing, and the girls participating. We see, the gals have been just wonderful ambassadors of the game, and at the ladies that played the Olympics. And I just so proud of the hockey girls that are doing it, because I have 7 granddaughters, and one of them's playing hockey, and 2 of them are playing soccer, because of the ladies that are bringing awareness that these girls are very athletic. And we want participation by everybody. We want everybody playing. And you might not be athletic, but just the fact you're participating and you're part of something is helping your teammates. And people don't forget that you become a factor in everybody's lives, and that step that they might need to help them go, and they'll come back and help you maybe with your stuff. Maybe you're in music and you need a drummer, and you're not a great drummer, but you'll try to be a drummer, and while he's playing guitar, and those things all pay off. So it's helping each other all the way through some of these challenges. At the same time, me from remote Val Marie, Saskatchewan, the metropolis, 250 people. I think it's down to 120 people, but it's a proud place to come from. I love the people back there. It was a great place to grow up. Hockey was a big part of our fabric, and it still is. There's not a lot of kids anymore, but they find a way. They got to drive to another town. They form teams, with with all the local towns around there, so they have enough kids playing. I'm amazed, what we do as parents and grandparents to help the next generation, and it's the same thing in the Indigenous communities, and that's why I'm so proud of the game of hockey, and I'm so proud of the people that are involved in the game, because everybody finds a way to grab a hold of the rope.
Right, Bryan. I wrote 2 words down here, taking some notes: culture and perspective. And it's interesting because I grew up on the East Coast in a big city. I went to college in a big city. And then I remember when I got to my first minor league camp, I was surrounded by farm kids from Canada. And I had never experienced that before in my life. And we had insanely different perspectives, right? When we traveled with you, I saw another perspective. You're also talking a lot about team culture, which is something that Mike and I are huge proponents of. Can we talk for a minute about the importance of getting outside your own little story, wherever it is that you're from? I don't mean you directly, I mean in general. Again, coming from a big city, you think that's the whole world. You think Philadelphia, New York City is the universe, right? And then you meet this guy who's better than you at hockey, and he's been, like you said, playing with a ball in the farmhouse, just honing his skills over the years and lifting hay. And he's a gigantic person, and little maybe a slower pace than I'm used to. I think part of developing great, we'll say, hockey players for this show is also developing great people. And I think that part of the educational value that our game provides, this is both in the locker room, outside the locker room, and broader, is to help you get a perspective on other people's lives. And again, take you outside of your own little story. Can you talk about the importance of that? And please feel free to reference from a culture standpoint the teams that you've played for and coached, because the coming together of those cultures, whether it be an NHL environment or a local First Nation community, really is what living's about. I mean, it really is an important aspect of becoming a well-rounded person.
Well said. I think there's a certain chemistry that has to happen to the game of hockey, right? And if one guy doesn't fit into the chemistry, he gets weeded out pretty quick. And he'll weed himself out. Everybody's trying to welcome him. You're trying to include him because you need him. You depend on him. And hey, bring everything you got. Bring your best game. Bring all your skills. Bring your hard work. And if he doesn't do that, he gets weeded out. And if there might be one aspect of it, maybe a little not his fault. But if he's bringing his hard work and his best effort, that's so important. And guys will embrace him as fast as they possibly can. So here I am from remote Saskatchewan. Clark Gillies is from the big city of Moose Jaw. He's a city kid. He didn't grow up on a farm. And we had chemistry together. Why? Because I saw how all his attributes, he saw all my attributes, and we worked together to make it work. Along comes Mike Bossy, city kid from Quebec. And he comes from a different world. He comes different culture. And he brings all this goal scoring skill, and we're like, oh, let's embrace this kid because we're gonna have some fun with him, and together we're gonna have even more fun. So when you have that ability to welcome, embrace, encourage, and work together as a trio, a line, that helps. Now you expand that into a team. You have the culture of the team, which is our Islanders were, a hardworking team. We took pride in our power play, our special teams. We took pride in how we forechecked, how hard we backchecked, and how we became defensive minded. Then we go to Pittsburgh, and we've got Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr. We've got this ultra skilled hockey team, and we still have to maintain a sense of pride in our penalty killing, our sense of pride of defense. And so everybody's got to grab a hold of this rope, and we all got to grab a hold of this culture. Even though we come from different backgrounds, we also have players coming from North America, obviously, US, Canada. Then we got players coming from Sweden, Finland. Now we got Russians. We got players coming from all over the world, Czechoslovakia. Everybody comes from a different culture, but we all have something to bring to the table. We all have a skill. We all have a desire. Maybe it's the same desires. Maybe it's a little bit different skills. Maybe it's something but it's chemistry. And the biggest goal is the Stanley Cup. We all want to win. So if everybody has that sense of winning is more important than just scoring a goal. Yeah, we want to score goals to help our team win. Let's all score. Let's all be working hard. Let's all try to defend at the same time. So when we don't have the puck, we're defending. And all those things have to gel so that you have success. So yeah, Colorado as a coach, that's what we sell. We want to sell. Everybody has to be thinking the same thing, have that same commitment. And so they put it on our Stanley Cup ring. It's all about commitment. And when everybody grabs a hold of that rope, that's when you talk about, like, whether it's culture, perspective, whatever it is, that chemistry in a team relates to success. And you become dependable. You can't wait to get to the rink to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful atmosphere. Yeah, there's some teasing going on in the locker room. Everybody teases. But at the same time, there's this tapping on the shin pads. Hey, that was a good block shot. That was a great forecheck, great pass, good goal, whatever it is, big save by the goalie. All those things are factors that bring into this success. So yeah, like I love all this stuff. I love talking about it. When I played, I didn't think about it as much, but when I became a coach, I said, I want to be able to communicate this to my players, and I want to talk about this. And then you become a father or grandfather, and now you're talking to the next generation. And I want to, like, kind of perfect some of these things that we all think about, like you are now. And when we're going, we're kind of shocked at, like, wow, I come from a little town and I can play with a guy from Moose Jaw and a guy from Quebec, and we can have success. We don't have to come from the same little town to think alike, to have the same desires, the same wants. But there's an appreciation of the skills, the chemistry that has to blend and have success. But there's also this strong desire to make sure that, hey, we're also respectful of each other. You know, we get a little angry at each other, but at the same time, there's, okay, respect. And then, hey, next time I'm open, I'll give a yell. Next time you're open, you give a yell. That communication starts developing. Even that improves over time. And there's a bond and a friendship that happens. And you know, when you have success, good things happen. And I'll tell you, we had great teams with great cultures. Like Islanders had Al Arbor, Bill Torrey. You come here, you got Bob Johnson, Craig Patrick, and Scotty Bowman. Go to Colorado, we got, you know, Pierre Lacroix. We got Bob Hartley. And we develop a culture, you know, great leadership in the locker room. Joe Sakic, Patrick Waugh, Ray Bourque, everybody's from a different area of the world, so to speak. Might be, you know, Western Canada, Eastern Canada. You got, you know, the influence of the Russians. And I think it's just wonderful that you can blend all of these things and have the kind of success. And hockey is wonderful that way. And we all want to pull somebody into the family as fast as possible so he can contribute and be a part of everything. And at the same time, bring your best effort. Don't just bring a half an effort. That best effort is so appreciated on every team, as you know, as Mike knows, I know. But we want to tell these young kids that are learning the game, you might not be the best hockey player on the team, but boy, everybody appreciates when everybody brings their best effort. You can always be the best teammate. Everybody can aspire to be the best teammate. Okay, you're not the best hockey player, but boy, are you ever a great teammate? You show up, you work the hardest every time. You do the drills. You work, and that is the kind of thing that I think every kid can bring, is their best effort all the
time. So I think well, that's all. So I'm my head's going all over the place right now. But I think, you know, what because I just want the season to start right now. I think what, you know,
you're itching,
I think
huh, Mike? We're getting close to you're itching for the season. I'll remember that.
Well, I'm just like well, Bryan's very inspiring. Just to hear, because of the championship teams he's been on, and understanding that culture is such a big piece. And we're talking to youth hockey players and moms and dads and coaches, and the importance, I think, Bryan, really maybe you could touch on just the fact that on those teams, on every one of those teams, everybody had to play a role. And I think what happens in youth hockey today is, like, we don't have the opportunity with our 12U team to trade a kid in November and say, oh, I got to trade him for somebody else. Talk about the importance at that level, at the professional hockey level, when you put together teams and won a championship at the 3-ice tournament, for God's sake. So you had to know, like, okay, I got to find a way quickly with a whole different group of guys that I've never coached before, and make sure they understand that their role, whether they're the leading goal scorer or the hardest checker or the biggest back checker or somebody making a save, all need to fit in to this winning culture. It doesn't always have to be about being the first line centerman. Maybe talk a little bit about the fact that how players can, you know, take a different role depending on what they're asked to do, and how important that is for championship teams to develop.
Well said, Mike. I think all of us want to be the highest scorer on the team. All of us want to be the goal scorer. They want to be the playmaker. They want to be the guy in the power play. But you can't always be that guy, right? So there's a lot of roles everybody can grab. Penalty killer. You can be a pressure guy that just puts pressure on the other team. You can be a back checker that helps the defense. I mean, you can be the guy that blocks shots. There's lots of little roles that you can play. And I think Florida, like, let's get away from my team for a second. Let's take Florida, the most recent Stanley Cup champion, right? They were in the Stanley Cup finals the year before against Vegas and lose. They go back to the drawing board. Did they give up, or they just? I'm sure they're just devastated. I've been there. I've lost in the finals. That's devastation. But to their credit, they went back to the drawing board. They recommitted, basically rebooted the computer, refocused themselves, and said, "Okay, here's what we have to do as a team. We got to the finals. We didn't win. Why didn't we win? Because they didn't do the little things. They felt they weren't a team that did all the little things. They weren't heavy on the puck. They didn't pressure. They didn't finish your checks. They didn't do all those things. So everybody that came to that team had to buy into the culture of finish your checks. Don't turn away. Finish your checks. Even their skill guys, even the guys that were the leading scorers, did all the little things. They maintained a sense of like, okay, here's how we're going to forecheck. Here's how we're going to pressure neutral zone. Here's how we're going to defend in our own zone. So their systems became their focus, not just what they brought to the game on skill wise, goal scoring, all. Because when it was power play time, you saw the two power play units. We saw them over and over again, and they were putting pucks to the net. They had the basic 10 guys that were out there for their power play. Who were the penalty killers? Who were their face-off guys? Who were the guys that were doing all the other things? You know, that don't get on the scoreboard, but they all provide a way to have the team success. So those little mini roles, or whatever you want to call it, everybody can grab a hold of something and bring something to the table. If they're not scoring goals, if you're not playing on the power play, if you're not killing penalties, you got to be able to do something that brings something that everybody kind of rallies around. And they said, that guy's doing it. Let's all come on. He's doing it. Let's go. And that kind of rallies the whole spirit, and it kind of gets the whole bench energized. And, you know, like I remember coming back to the bench sometimes, and guys that were playing like 3-4 minutes a game were the most cheered. They were the happiest guys. They were tapping you on the shin. Great shift. Come on, guys, keep it going. Everybody's got to kind of grab a hold of that encouraging aspect too. Like, you don't want to be just a, you know, kind of sitting on the pine, being really quiet. You got to be an energy guy. You got to find a way to like be a part of things. And they talk about Eddie Olchuk in New York Rangers and how he was that guy on the bench who was always just like so positive. Hey, we got to give it like more of this, and hey, give it out. Like, those things matter. And if you're going to be saying things, say smart things. Don't be saying dumb things. Nobody likes a dumb hockey player, but we all have something positive to say that's going to be encouraging, that's going to help the team win. And those encouraging, inspiring words are just as important as a goal. Believe me, I said they keep that energy going. So I give Florida a lot of credit. Yeah, they played a great team in Edmonton. They shut down some great players with McDavid and Draisaitl, but they also were so focused on their team game, what they had to do with the little things, the roles that had to get done besides just scoring goals. So yeah, you need to tap your goaltender on the shin pads after a big save, and those kind of things just kind of all matter, and they magnify, and they just kind of snowball. And so for me, yeah, roles, those little mini things that are so important to a team's success, they don't get on the scoreboard, but they are so important through a season. And so just continue to be a great teammate, concentrate, focus on everything that's important aside from just working on your skills. But remember, keep working on your skills.
You know, Bryan, these are great thoughts. So I'd say you're just thinking about Florida. It's not like they were 29th in the league last year. They lost in the cup final. They were right there. They could taste it. And it was through that pain and suffering in a relative sense that spawned them to grow. And let's be honest about it. Real growth comes from suffering. Real growth comes from when you face problems in your life. It doesn't happen when you win. Right. I mean, and don't get me right, the euphoria of winning a championship is an amazing feeling, as you know, but the growth comes from wanting more, or from other places like that. And the other thing too that you're touching on that we have to dive into is the we over me mentality and the dropping of ego. And my belief is that ego is the enemy of evolving consciousness. And for a team to win, you have to have, as you were talking about, a collective consciousness, an understanding of we have a goal together. That's something I think that can be taught or coached more than people think. A lot of times when I work with teams in the team building front, there's this curiosity of, well, team chemistry, kind of you have it or you don't. And I said, I don't believe that to be true. It can be developed, right? But through a process of understanding what is ego. Kind of to tap this back to the First Nation communities, the lack of ego in that community that I visited was astounding. I mean, it was astounding. You could tell that these people cared about each other. They cared about me. They cared about you. They cared about their neighbors. It was a true we mindset. When we equate that to hockey, it's something that can be taught. Am I correct in that assumption?
I think you're 100% correct. I think hockey is that kind of sport that you rely on each other so much, offensively, defensively, game without the puck, game with the puck, defensive zone, neutral zone, face-offs. What's your role on face-off? We win the draw, we lose the draw. What do we do? And that awareness and that communication that's necessary, all those things develop chemistry. And if you have a coaching staff, or you have a culture where you're repetitive, or you're just constantly reminding guys, say, hey, here's how we do it. Here's how we do it. Here's how we do it. Here's what you need to concentrate a little bit more here. And just kind of little reminders all the time. I think that's a big factor. You talk about ego. Well, we were brought up in a generation, obviously, and I think society looks at ego as a real negative. And you talk to some of the best, greatest hockey players in the world, I think they've got a very strong self-esteem, which is their ego, which they control, but they use it to motivate themselves and feel that confidence that you need. Your esteem, which is confidence, which is pride, which is positive, and you take that and you use that with your team and say, here, come on, guys, be a part of this wonderful thing of we, which is family, which is a team. And if you think like a family and you think you care about each other and you worry about each other and you need somebody, and you say, sometimes guys need their arm around their shoulder. They're having a tough day. Maybe they need a little kick in the pants and say, hey, come on, let's go. We need you. Whatever it is, that kind of family atmosphere is so important in a team's ego or their team esteem. And I think individual esteem is so important. Egos are important, but they got to be controlled, right? You don't want someone to be all about me, the egotistical maniac, but you want to have a strong ego. You want to take that and use that as your self-esteem, which is positive, and everybody, they feel that esteem. They feel a sense that guy's really proud of himself. Like he's not an egomaniac. He's just a very confident guy, and people kind of like draw to that, right? The leaderships that's in all of us, and leadership is wonderful. You can have one captain on a team, but I think everybody's got a little leader in them. And when you take that esteem and you use that in a positive way, maybe it's your ego, use it, but don't use it in a negative way. Use it to say, you know what? I'm going to use that as leadership. I'm going to be a little leader on my team. I'm going to do something that's going to help our team win. And I think there's a leader in all of us. I always felt our Islander team had 20 leaders. Everybody was a leader in that locker room, and we encouraged everybody to say something positive, do something positive. And that was important. Penguins, we had leaders, we had captains coming from everywhere. Ronnie Francis, Mario Lemieux, myself, assistant captain, Joey. We had captains coming from every team, and we became a team of misfits, so to speak, that kind of jumped on the team with the young Jaromir Jagr and Tommy Barrasso. We were all ready to win, but everybody brought something, some leadership to that team. And those things are self-esteem, ego, positive. I think that's very important. And sometimes people get a wrong impression of a guy. So a guy who like Guy Lafleur or maybe Mike Bossy or some of the greatest players, that were just goal scorers, and if they didn't score, didn't help the team win, maybe they weren't the happiest, but they were happy about the team winning. but they wanted to contribute. So people misread that sometimes, that, oh, he's just a little upset because he's, no, that is a strong ego, because next game they come out and they want to pump in 2 or 3 goals to help a team win. I think that's a healthy ego. That's a healthy one, that where you're helping the team, and don't misread that. Always try to look and say, okay, that's kind of like what all of us try to do, is we try to look at the positives of everybody that's on the team, and that's respect. And if someone's having a tough day, put your arm around them. Someone needs a little encouragement. Hey, we need you. Come on, let's go. That's way better than yelling at somebody, come on, get your butt in gear. Well, that sometimes a coach can do that, but not everybody has to do that. A team is all about that encouragement and everything that's important around that. So when you're building, like you talk about the culture, and you're talking about the pride of a team, you're talking about this team, the self-esteem of a team, team esteem, and the team ego. But hey, it's really a pride and a confidence that you want to have when you step on that ice as a group. Everybody's got to look around and say, wow, we got a really good team, and I'm confident today. And that's team esteem. I think that's a very important thing to build.
I think it's one of the reasons why people in the hockey world and outside the hockey world, reporters and people that follow hockey, are shocked when they meet a professional hockey player off the ice, because they see this gladiator on the ice. They see somebody that has ego, that is trash talking, that's in your face, that's battling, that has that I'm not going to lose attitude. And then they meet them off the ice and they can't believe this is the same person. Like, it means to be like, this can't be the same person. I think in my experience with all these different sports, hockey is one of those sports that really, the people, the players, are so much more approachable and so much more humble, and so much more in a position of gratitude and understanding where they came from, and what they need to do to turn that on. And I think, and me watching you live, like, that's like how I look at it. I look at it, I go, how did this guy play against this player and that player and this player? And then it can be the nicest person off the ice and put that, ego aside, that cockiness aside, but also know how to use it in a game situation. I think that's one of the great things. And a lot of the athletes we've talked to on this show about how they can turn that on and turn that off, and how they understand that off the ice, it's over. Just like why the NHL is so great, that it's the only sport that shakes hands at the end of a series, where, 4 minutes ago you wanted to kill the other person. And I think, and then all of a sudden you're like, hugging, and hey, we'll see you next year. Great, have a great summer. And I think it's really one of those things that stands out so much in the sport of hockey.
Yeah, I think you said it very, very well. It's a wonderful thing about our sport, is that, like you said, there's a sportsmanship, I think, that transcends, I think, the gladiator side of us, because when it's all said and done, you said, hey, that was the best competition I've ever had. And that's what you want. You want the other team's best game, because it brings out your best game. You want to bring your best game, you want that high competition. And that's the adrenaline, and that's the high, that's the rush of playing a sport, is to give your best effort, play against the very best, and win, succeed. And if you don't, go back to the drawing board and try to improve, try to see what you didn't do in order to beat them next time. And that's competition. And I think that's healthy, to be able to, like, look him in the eye after the game, shake his hand, and say, that was a great game, and mean it. I mean, that is spectacular. And so I've gone through, like, a lot of lines in my life where you're shaking hands, win, lose, or draw. Played 18 years, coached another 10, 28 years in the NHL. I only won 7 Stanley Cups. So there's more losing than winning. But I say to myself, of that ratio, I can remember guys coming by me, shaking my hand. I'm saying, that was awesome. That was a great series. Thank you for your best game. I can remember in the 70s, we didn't win anything. Daryl Sittler, I'm shaking his hand. I'm like, Daryl, you taught me how to play a 200-foot game for 60 minutes. Every face-off was a battle. Thank you. I am going, like, that's how you want to play. And then you play against Mark Messier, and all of a sudden you're looking him in the eye and say, that was a 200-foot game, and you made every face-off tough. And those are the kinds of things that make competition great, right? But at the end of it, it's sportsmanship. And that's what my mom talked about. Every coach I had talked about sportsmanship. There's rules out there. play hard, but play within the rules. You don't want to like be out there trying to maim somebody. That's not what sports all about. You want to bump a guy off the puck. You want to take the puck away. You want to score a goal. Yeah, big deal. But that's a battle, and that's a good battle. That's a wonderful battle. But keep our sticks down. You don't want to. You don't hurt anybody. Everybody wants to go home with two eyes, and nobody wants to go home with stitches, all their teeth. But it's really kind of one of those things that the competition brings out a little bit of the gladiator in us. But it's all said and done. Play within the rules. Play with sportsmanship. Keep your sticks down. At the end of it, everybody has greater respect for you as a sportsman who plays high competitive hockey and doesn't play out of the rules and does stupid, crazy things than somebody who's out there playing recklessly and trying to win at all costs. Next thing, he doesn't have any respect. That guy's we're like, oh my God, he's on my team. I'm not really proud of that game, but but sometimes, you got a guy out there who wants to be a little bit of a pain in the butt. All right. Well, okay, but don't be a big pain in the butt. Just play within the rules, because it's our sport. There's integrity in our sport. And the best players in the world, you look at Lemieux and Gretzky's and Orr's, Gordie Howe, that's the kind of player we want to aspire to be. The Jean Beliveaus, the Stan Mikitas, they played hard. They played within the rules. They weren't like 300 penalty minutes a year. They played hard. Yeah, they took a penalty here and there, but it was a good hard penalty. It was a competitive penalty, and we all understand accidents happen here and there. But so it's a very important point you make there, Mike, as far as the gladiator side of the game and then the sportsmanship side of the game. And we're all about sportsmanship a little bit more than we are about gladiator.
I think one of the best stories I've heard, or one of my favorites, is I think in your book, All Roads Home, you might have been doing an interview on the NHL Network, and you talked about the myth that I heard, I heard growing up, the reason the Oilers won the Stanley Cup for the first time was because they walked by the Islanders locker room and guys are bleeding and guys are bloody noses and ice all over themselves, and Wayne Gretzky's like, that's what it takes to win. And maybe can you elaborate more on that story a little bit and maybe debunk some of those? But although it's a great story and a great motivator, but this is a team that beat you guys the following year, right? So maybe talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was a great story.
Yeah, Mike, that was a fun story, but it came to bite us a little bit because we're so respectful, right? Because we knew that Edmonton, so we're playing Edmonton in 1983, Nassau Coliseum, we win game 4. And we know that they got to go by our locker room. We're presented the cup. We shake hands. We're presented on the cup on the ice. But we know that they got to go by our locker room to get to their bus. So we don't want to rub salt in their wounds. So we had a kid say out there, if a player or two comes by, just give us a heads up. And we'll just kind of settle down a little bit. We won't be whooping it up and, just kind of rubbing their noses in a little bit. So, a couple players would all sit down. A few guys had ice bags and that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's a couple stitches here and there and black eyes, but there's a price you got to pay to win. And Wayne's right. You got to pay a price to win the Stanley Cup. You're blocking shots. You got to get in there. You got to get in the greasy, grimy areas, and there's a price to pay to score a goal sometimes or block it and do the stuff you got to defend. Anyway, it comes back because Wayne's like, that's what it takes to win the Stanley Cup. You got to do. And look, they're not even celebrating. They're all beat up. They're just relaxing, and they're trying to recover after 4 tough games against us and all the series they had to go through, and we're just trying to not rub salt in their wound. And when they went by, we're all like, woo! We're cheering again, and all of a sudden, oh, here comes 2 more, and then we just sit down like altar boys, and we just okay, they're gone, woo! Away we go again. So it came back to bite us a little bit, but Wayne's version is wonderful. But I like our version too a little bit, because it shows how hockey players are a little maybe too respectful of the opposition, because they turn around and use it as ammunition against you. But that's a fun story.
Right, but it is a battle, and I think just that respect and knowing that, okay, those other guys, listen, and especially in today's game, right, that following year you might be playing with those 2 or 3 of those guys. So it's just it's not like when the Islanders were able to keep those, and even the Oilers, right, keeping those teams together and just changing a couple of chess pieces here and there. But us as youth hockey coaches, we don't get the chance to do that. It's okay, this is the team I got, and every year it's going to be different. So I've got to learn to use that. I think that respect and discipline and having the opportunity to know that you have to be a great sport and be a good sportsman is going to get you on more teams than not. and allow you to have more success going down the road. Because Leo alluded to it earlier that, everybody's going to be good. Once you get to a point in your hockey career, everyone's good. And what separates you from all the good players, it's what you can do for that team and that coach. And a lot of it's going to be, holy crap, can I control this guy? Like, can I depend on this person with 2 minutes left in the game that they're not going to take a penalty that's going to cost us a series or embarrass me or embarrass the organization. So I think it's really a cool, I would definitely recommend, like, I use All Roads Home as a coaching guide. Like, I think it's just, a lot of great stories in there, but there's a lot of great lessons and things you can teach the players you're working with. And to me, I'm like, well, why wouldn't you want to coach or quote Bryan Trottier? That's a pretty good quote in my book. So, so it's a good read. I think it's a good opportunity to use as a stepping stone, but certainly the stories you tell about how hard it was to get to where you got is pretty impressive.
Well, I appreciate the little punches, but it is. I'm very, very proud of the book. The book is a wonderful reflection of where I come from, the family aspect of it, the teams I played on, the wonderful friendships and bonds I made, some of the successes and accomplishments. But yeah, there's a lot of little side stories in there. I think that a lot of people can relate to. Young hockey players growing up, players that are going through that transition from junior to pros that are having that moment of where they're a player that had skill that became a checker, or you have a player that has to go through a transition of becoming like player to coach to manage, and using all those experiences in a real positive way. And I was fortunate. I was surrounded by a lot of good people, family and just great friends, and mentored at a young age. I didn't have an older brother, but I went to junior hockey at Tiger Williams, most penalized player in the history of the NHL, and he was spectacular. But the push and pull that he and I had, and the friendship we still have, I think helped both of us through junior hockey. And then at times in our life, we become very important aspects, because that friendship and that bond that we had at a young age, transpires to become a real strong anchor in life. And so our friendships in hockey are pretty strong. And I lost two line mates, Clark Gillies and Mike Bossy, recently, and it's tough to say goodbye to people. And but it makes us really hold on tight to our friendships, because those bonds are so precious to us. The successes we had on the ice, but it's all the stuff that we care about, their families and that kind of stuff. So yeah, All Roads Homes is awesome. I'm so proud of the book, but all of us come from somewhere. Our stories are a little bit similar, but they're a little bit different. But we can all relate to everybody's stories. And when I hear players' stories coming from, Jaromir Jagr from Czechoslovakia to Pittsburgh, and how he was culture shocked, and how he still succeeded, and the stuff he did off the ice to improve himself and his English, and how he improved overall as a team player, not just an individual. And hear his story, it's spectacular. I love everybody's story. If everybody wrote a book, I'd read them all, because everybody's story is so fun. And the game of hockey is so fun in general. To hear some of those wonderful stories are sometimes funny, they're sometimes sad, but overall, we all have something that we can relate to those stories. So yeah, my story is fun, Mike.
There's a lot of gratitude. It's a word I want to tap on in this conversation, to other people, to other teams, to other players. We're talking handshakes. We're talking other people's stories. Bryan, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about and discuss with our audience here is gratitude, and the understanding of how gratitude plays into competition. And you kind of said it earlier that, thank goodness we have an opponent to challenge us. Thank goodness we can compete to learn about ourselves and learn about each other. And you had said it, even in some of the series that were won or lost, someone learned something. I was going to say, whether you like Gretzky's version of that story, your version of that story, the truth is this: that that Islanders team affected the league for decades and generations to come, because that story affected people, right? It set the new normal for winning the Stanley Cup. And then the Oilers, obviously, a dynasty of their own. So let's talk for a minute about just gratitude, the importance of teaching gratitude, the importance of having gratitude, not just in youth hockey. I think we're just talking generally here.
Well, it's a wonderful word, and I think those of us that appreciate, those of us that take the time to thank and show the kind of gratitude, not to beat up a word, but to say, you know what, that was spectacular. Thank you. All those things matter. And I look back at my parents, you know, no money. We always found ways to like have hockey equipment or stick or skates or something. The dedication I had to put forward to that. But when all of a sudden you fast forward to the Stanley Cup, which was my goal from the time I was 8 years old, right? Raise the Stanley Cup over my head. And that gratitude at that moment, raising the Stanley Cup over my head, was not just about my teammates and the fans of Long Island and the fans that were cheering for us, all, you know, hockey fans. It was about those moments of gratitude, the sacrifices my parents had to make, the sacrifices of my teammates, the appreciation of all the coaches I had, players that helped me get to this moment. And that's what I reflected on from that moment I got to raise the Stanley Cup. And every time afterwards, it was like, wow, thank you very much, everybody who helped me get this. This is like spectacular. So to reflect on that and then to look at like all the things I had to do in gratitude, because I watched some of the best players, like from the time I was a little kid on Hockey Night in Canada, sitting in front of the TV, black and white TV, snowy, you know, the antenna, you know, wasn't always as clear as it is today. And watching Gordie Howe and Stan Mikita and Jean Beliveau and learning from them and appreciating what their skills and saying, I'm going to go practice that. I'm going to go practice that tomorrow. I'm going to practice that on the ice. I'm going to practice that next time I get on it. And then to watch the Montreal Canadiens win 4 consecutive Stanley Cups. And me as a professional, watching them practice, how they conducted themselves, how they dressed, how they looked like champions. I'm like, Blair Robinson, Guy Lafleur, Yvonne Cornway, they look like champions. They conduct themselves in public like champions. They practice like champions. So I appreciate it. And when we won, my gratitude was to Montreal because I learned from them. And those creepy Edmonton Oilers learned from us. But I think we all learn from somebody. So to look back and appreciate your grandparents, your moms and dad, all where you come from, your heritage, you know, the strength that you get from your bloodlines. And my mom's Irish, and she'd say, you know, you get your strength from your Irish, you get your athleticism from your First Nation, you get this from your dad, you get this from your uncle. I'm like, oh my God, like it's had a sense of pride. So those gratitudes and those appreciation factors, they just swell up and they help build your esteem. They help you build that confidence that you need. And so, yeah, never stop showing appreciation and gratitude for everybody that's helped you along the way, or what's coming around the corner. You're always learning. You're always watching. Because someone's watching you. You know, you can be an example for the next person growing up, whether you're a parent, a brother, you know, you're a student in school, you're a 12th grader, there's an 8th grader watching you, and you become that example. So always try to maintain a sense of, you know, dignity, at the same time self-awareness, and apply yourself and be the best person you can be. Like we talked about, this is being a good person in the community. It's being supporting charities, supporting a friend who's in trouble, because, well, I'll tell you, it's hard to ask for help, but it's also a sign of strength when you do, because if your friend asks for help, you're right there saying, yeah, I'll help you. If your neighbor needs help, yeah, I'll help you. So it's one of those things I had to learn the hard way, but you always say to yourself, you know what? There's strength in asking for help. And there's also a wonderful thing that when you're a good person, you're ready to help somebody else. So like you talk about, I mean, the gratitude and the appreciation comes full circle. It always comes full circle. Probably comes back more than you give when you're appreciative. You know, you're showing gratitude, because it comes back tenfold, 100-fold. If you're doing, you know, you're being a good, those things keep coming back in waves. And, you know, you need help, people will rally for you. So I think it's a good word. And I think you bring up a great point in the word gratitude, because we're all learning from something and people help us along the way. And So yeah, you can give back the same way without even knowing it.
You know, Brian, I wanna ask you this question too. I want you to talk directly to the youth athletes that listen to this program, and we have a lot. And throughout the show, you've mentioned several times about how you might not have had the resources, but you were resourceful in your training as a youth hockey player, whether it was the ball in the barn or watching the TV and recognizing that's a skill I want to work on. You know, today we have more training aids than anyone could ever want. But the truth is this, if you're a young youth athlete, you need to be resourceful in your pursuit of becoming a better hockey player. So can you talk directly to the kids listening to this show about the importance of being resourceful and the dedication that it takes from a love of the game, a creative side of the game to become the best hockey player in person you can be?
I'd love to. I think this is a very, very important thing because um, being resourceful and creative, I think, is another thing that's in all of us. I think we can find ways. And being resourceful sometimes is not just an individual thing, it's asking. It can be a parent, it can be a teacher, it can be a friend, it can be a teammate, it can be somebody. Being resourceful is looking, watching, maybe being a little creative yourself, but also asking around and saying, and man, what do I do? What do I need to do next? And somebody might have an idea for you. So yeah, resourcefulness is really important. My dad was a wonderful motivator because he knew what the things that I wanted to do, right? Which was going to help me become a better hockey player. Again. Come on, we got to go milk those cows. You know, milk those cows are going to be helping your wrist shot. Come on, let's carry those 5-gallon pails of water and oats out to the horses. We got a garden. We got to water. And I'd be like, oh man, you're building your muscles. Look how strong you're going to be. Put those ankle weights on. You know, I'd be running a quarter mile, half mile to do my chores, and Dad's like, oh my, look at the stamina you're building. But those things help motivate me, right? But there's also what was around us. I lived out in the country. I didn't have a gym down the street where I could go to. But if you have one, go use it. But you find somebody that's going to help you train the right muscles, right? So watch around, see what you can learn, watch people, how they're doing things and train the right way. So it was wonderful for me when I got, into junior hockey to learn some of the other things that some of the other players were doing that were helping their game and the training techniques and the coaching techniques and some of the things we learned as a team and some of the team building that we did. The workouts that we had sometimes in junior hockey, and you can use this to minor hockey as well, were team oriented. It was a team stretch before practice. There was team, we called it a cycle where we had to do like calisthenics. We had to do jumping jacks, sit-ups, and we do that as a team. And that was team building, that we did that as a group. It wasn't like, okay, you do 50, you do 10, we all had to do 20. And then we moved to another station. And it was really wonderful that we had this resourcefulness of a coach. We didn't have a lot of machines at the time, but we did these things that were always helping us to improve individually, as a team, build our muscles, build our conditioning, our stamina, do something that's good. And we even had team skills. Sometimes we just had take a ball and a puck on a cement floor and just work on our stick handling back and forth, wide, short, forward, backwards, one hand. When we got on the ice, boom, there it was. But it was something that we could do that was like, just wasn't on the ice, and it wasn't something that, someone said, okay, you got to do that. It was something that it's repetitive, it's muscle. What do they call that? It's kind of like you're constantly reminding your muscle.
Muscle memory. Yeah.
Muscle memory. And all of a sudden you're saying, wow, I just did that. I don't remember how, but
Right.
because you practiced it 1,000 times, all of a sudden it became habit in the game. So those things are so important. So when you're talking about resourcefulness, you're talking about, ways to kind of improve yourself when you don't have all the things that are around you, man. It's so good to ask for help, look for people around. One of the most important people in my life, believe it or not, was my high school advisor. She was spectacular. You know why? Because she was the one that encouraged me to write. She says, Brian, you're a really good writer. Keep writing. You've got this ability. I'm like, what is that? Well, how am I ever going to use that in life? But it's wonderful because it teaches you the skill of being able to put your thoughts on a piece of paper. And when I look back at my growing up through hockey, I had a list of things that I wanted to improve on. And I had another list of things that I was going to get. And I say to myself, those writing skills were important. And I hunted her down, and it was really kind of fun. Her name was Mrs. Ewer, and now it's Lorna Crozier, and she ends up being one of Canada's greatest poets and writers. And but so proud of that high school connection that we had, and then to reconnect years later and find out she's had all this wonderful success as one of Canada's best poets and writers. To me, is like, wow, look at the impression and the ability she had to me to find this resource I didn't know was going to help me later on in life, but it was so important during that aspect of my life and while I was growing. So you never know what's going to help you along the way, but always be looking for ways to improve yourself, not just as a player, not just as a teammate, but as a person.
Hey, Lee, I got to go back and edit our episode on what sports help you in your sport of hockey, because I have to put in milk jug carrying, stall cleaning, and
milking, just milking the cows,
and milking cows. I didn't have that. Those aren't on my top 10 after soccer, tennis, and lacrosse. So I'm gonna have to add to this. So.
Yeah, I love that, Mike. And again, just keeping this in line here, right? It is about looking and being creative. Bryan, I love that you brought up writing and that connection point of connecting a pencil to your brain, as they say in Hamilton, and being able to explain that stuff does matter on the ice, right? In terms of not just driving you, but the ability to communicate, the ability to do these things. So becoming a well-rounded human being, as you just said, is part of this process. And again, as a kid, you might say, "Oh, I don't have this great training aid that everyone has." You don't need it. It's a great luxury. Don't get me wrong, but you don't need it. You need a floorball stick, something you can go outside with and just practice your skill sets and build that muscle memory. Also build your muscle memory of your mind. I love that, Bryan. We're getting short on time here, Bryan, but I did want to ask you, going back to the work you're doing with First Nations. You've got a lot of NHL alumnus friends and people involved in this. How have they received this? It seems like it's been a great initiative across the league that you've started. Tell me about the friends you've created along this and the work that's being done, and how people can get involved if they want to.
Well, the really wonderful thing that happened to me was an invite. I got an invitation to go up to the Western Arctic. I'd never been up there. It was the Indigenous North, and I'd never been up there. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go up to the Mackenzie Delta and take a little trip. So it was a 5-day trip, and we went into these really small, remote communities: Aklavik, Inuvik, Paulatuck, Sax Harbor. I'm like, holy cow! These are little small Cova Lake. I'm like, these little small communities, and they are so crazy about this fun game of hockey. So I got to go in there and just have another appreciation of remote areas of Canada. So not realizing that John Chabot was doing the same thing on the East Coast, and Ted Nolan was doing the same thing throughout the James Bay area. I'm like, wow, there's lots of us doing some of the same stuff, getting into the communities, telling our story, and trying to inspire the next generation of what we called student athlete. It wasn't just hockey player, it was student athlete. We were trying to get the kids all to participate in sport: basketball, volleyball, badminton, whatever, floorball, whatever was going on, at tennis. And it was really wonderful to see the reaction and the response of the teachers, the parents, the community, and the invitations that came back, or invitations to go to other communities. So that was my kind of eye-opening experience, because while I was playing the game, I'd get into the cities, I'd get into the inner cities in Saskatoon, I'd get into Regina, I'd get into Winnipeg, I'd get into like the bigger cities, fly in, fly out. But to get into these remote communities and fly in for 3-4 days and get to some of the other communities that were local around it was just spectacular, because I found there's hockey fans all over the place. They love the game of hockey. They love our stories. And there's many of us out there doing it. So now I've got Aaron Asham involved with Gino Ojic. I've done so many different trips with a lot of different guys that come from Indigenous backgrounds. Our stories are hilarious. Our stories are fun. Our stories are true. And yeah, we all have some similar challenges, but some of the same challenges. And we love to share this because all of us at one point were shy. We were very homesick. We were very like reluctant to leave, but we did. And when we were able to come back and share this experience, it inspired another generation of Indigenous student athletes to leave home and go to school, go to college somewhere, go to junior hockey, go play midget hockey somewhere. You can always come home. And I put that in my book. And Mike, thanks for bringing up the book. But it's in my book. The most important words I ever heard from my dad, because I was going to quit hockey. I was 16 years old. Hockey wasn't fun. It was about just, fighting, getting beat up. I was small. I wasn't big. And guys were just like, every game, I was a black eye going to school. It wasn't fun. And I was only playing like 3-4 minutes a game. I was fourth liner, and I didn't like it. And Tiger Williams came and pulled me back in, and he said, "I'm bringing you back to Swift Current. You're playing. You're going to finish the year. I'm playing left wing with you." I'm like, "I'm done. I'm out of here." And I kind of stuck my heels in the ground. And Dad looked up from his coffee, and he, without yelling at me, just said, "You can always come home." And next thing I know, I was in that car, and I'm like, "Dang it! I'm back in this car, and I'm tired." Like, "Hey, we're gonna have one." And having Tiger as a big brother helped me, because people left me alone a little bit. But those words my dad said were so important, because he didn't yell at me. He didn't scream at me, "Get your butt knocked." He said, "You can always come home." Every kid should hear that. Every kid should say, "Go try it. You can always come home." Because we're all a little bit homesick. We're all a little bit fearful to leave home, and things that are, familiar to us all every day. Mom's cooking, and all your friends are around, schools and that kind of. But when you leave home, you come back. There's growth in that, and there's a growth of confidence. There's a growth of experience, and you bring those back, and people see you differently. Like, "Wow, you've matured. You've grown up." You're like, you're different. Well, yeah, because I've left home, and I had to take care of myself. I had to get myself up, brush, then mom, they're yelling at me, brush my teeth, silly things. But I think every kid should hear that. So yeah, no, it's one of those things. I think all of us that know the game of hockey, and all of us that know the game of sport, we're talking about student athletes. That's what we want to try. That's the message we want to bring. And I'm so proud of the Indigenous guys. We have an Indigenous hockey team. We try to find local all-stars that'll play us, and we have some great games. And they're good players. The young kids, especially, they're great stick handlers. The old guys know how to move the puck, right? They know how the puck does all the work. But yeah, the goaltending's always improving in the communities, but we like the challenge. So there's lots of us out there, and I think it's really good that the NHL is supporting us a little bit more, and we're getting out to these remote communities. We're finding more sponsors, and so every little bit helps, right? Because it's getting expensive. Like it's a little expensive for the kids to play the game, but it's also expensive to get us there to show the kids, some skills and that kind of stuff. But floorball has helped. Mike, you're doing a great job with our floorball, and I think just helping kids find their sport, because we play badminton with the kids. We play, basketball. Are we the best? No, but we have fun with these kids. We play soccer in the gym. We go outside and have all these wonderful little different activities that we can perform with the kids, because we want to get them participating, we want to get them active, and I think those things are all good for just athleticism, whether muscle development, conditioning your heart. They sleep better, they eat better, all those things that are important in our daily lives.
Well, Bryan, look, I'll end on saying this, that you're tapping into something that's so important. And we talked about creating better people, but this is what the best part of sports in general is. It's, while I'm sure winning multiple Stanley Cups is the most amazing thing ever, you're dedicating your time to helping develop young people and older people too into better versions of themselves. And I just can't think of a better calling. And I think that is the ROI on hockey, to make it specific, but sports, that's the ROI on group development activities, right? Is the ability to help society become better through understanding how we can work with each other, be with each other. And you've played a major role in that, in the amount of people that you have influenced, and those people influence other people, and so forth and so on. So I just want to end this with a huge thank you, not just for your hockey life, but your life in general and the things that you've created. I also want to thank your dad for telling you can always come home, because we might not have been here if he hadn't said that. Right. But I want to thank you for being on here today. So much to take away. I said, but at the beginning of the show, traveling with you was a life-changing experience. Shows like this are life-changing experiences for a lot of people.
it's always fun for me. But whenever we talk hockey, but I think for me, like to share some of my experiences and the fun stuff, the crazy stuff, the little tough stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, we're all built of different fabric, but it's kind of made me who I am today. And that's kind of another reason I wrote the book, was because when I was done hockey, in hockey, I was like always a little guarded, right? As a player and as a coach, I didn't want anybody know what I was thinking. But now that I'm done hockey and I'm out of coaching and playing all this stuff, I'm an open book. I said, hey, I got no more secrets. I'll just tell everybody what the hell I'm thinking. But it's really kind of fun, because part of our wellness, so to speak, our health, is mental health. And everybody's becoming a lot more aware of it. You know, the challenge of, and bullying, there's no place for it. You know, disrespect, there's no place for it. All those things are so important in our mental wellness, but participation is so important in our mental wellness. Sitting on the sidelines, looking at your phone all day is nothing wrong for a little bit. But I'll tell you, when you're participating in something and you're active, your mental wellness goes way up. And I give a lot of credit to the First Nations and the Indigenous communities for giving us an opportunity as professional athletes to come into their community, share our stories, but bring the wellness up, bring that spirit up, the energy, because when we come into it's a wonderful atmosphere. And are we bringing it? We're feeling it. And that's really important, because we're out in Grassy Narrows recently, and we worked in the gym with the smallest kids. Before long, here come the 6th graders. Next thing you know, hey, what's going on at the gym? Here come the 9th graders. Next thing you know, we had 12th graders. And the teacher was saying, we haven't had this much participation for a long time. So the fact that we can kind of be a magnet and draw the kids in is great. And now that the communities are becoming more, these kids are sleeping better, they eat better. If they're active and they're participating, that's important to their mental wellness. They're not just sitting around, you know, as couch potatoes all day. So if we can bring some of that, so that's as important as anything else. So yeah, so mental wellness, we're all about that, and we're all about helping the next generation. And I think everybody deserves a little bit of credit when we're all working on our health. So I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed being on with you guys. Thank you very much. You pumped my day up here. I'm feeling really.
It goes both ways, man. And remember, all roads lead home, right? So just in case, if you're interested, All Roads Home is his book. You can get that now. It's been out for a couple years. It's a fantastic read. We'll probably have you back on to discuss that even more in depth. And if you're more interested in the work that Bryan's doing, you can check out the documentary we did called Haisla First Nation, available on YouTube, completely free. We'll make sure we share it in the show notes as well. Mike, any final words from you before I close this out?
No, like I said, the book's a great read if you're a coach or a player or a parent. The Haisla Nation documentary is awesome and will open your eyes to those communities and the communities that are affected by any of these past practices. And I think more importantly, on my side with Bryan, I'm so appreciative of the fact that he helps me get involved with the outreach programs and using floorball for hockey and using our these sticks that, like Bryan said, gets any kid. We have kids that are AAA hockey players that get out there and start dangling around, and we have kids that have never touched a hockey stick in their life, and they look like they can play hockey. Like they're running around, they're laughing, they're competing, they're enjoying themselves. And the coolest thing I saw when we were up in Saskatchewan was to see kids that were so shy. And Bryan alluded to this a little bit. Like they would take a stick in the ball and go on the other side of the rink and kind of like stick handle on their own. And then they're like, hey, I can do this. I can handle this and I can do this. And then a guy like Bryan comes over and be like, hey, you got to get in here. Let's go. Let's get in the game. And those kids get in there and they're playing. Next thing you know, it's 6 hours later and mom and dad are trying to grab them from the rink. So I think it's one of those things where, any sport, I happen to like hockey as that inclusion sport, but any sport that's so easy and so open to get involved in and to Bryan's point, getting the kids off the couch, getting to meet new kids, getting them active. That was really a lot of the reasons why we've got involved so much in his initiatives, is because they're all about, bringing more kids into the sport and giving a healthier activity for all the kids involved. So it's been really great to be involved with him and Rich Pilon and the other NHL guys that continue to step up to the plate and give back to the sport that they started in.
Well said, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryan. Again, if you enjoyed this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey, share it with a friend. Send it over to them. Put it in your team communication. Let everybody listen to it as we try and grow the Our Kids Play Hockey community. Remember, you can always email us at team@ourkidsplayhockey.com if you have any questions, concerns, or thoughts that you want to share with this audience. But for Bryan Trottier and Mike Bonelli, I'm Elias. That's going to conclude this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Remember to have fun out there and skate on. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.